Hey everyone, and welcome back. You're here because you're interested in taking control of your money. Right. And maybe you've heard that the wealthy teach their kids a whole different set of rules when it comes to finances. Well, today we're going to dive deep into a book that tackles exactly that, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, this book's been a bestseller for years, and it's still so relevant.
It definitely gets people talking. Kiyosaki throws out some pretty bold ideas right from the start, like how the lack of money is the root of all evil, not money itself.
That's definitely a different way of looking at it.
It is. Most of us see money as the problem, but Kiyosaki flips that on its head. He's saying it's that fear of not having enough that actually holds us back.
Oh, I see. It's about that scarcity mindset that can keep us trapped.
Right. He actually grew up with two dads. His biological father, the poor dad, and his best friend's father, the rich dad. And they had totally different views on money.
And those contrasting perspectives shaped Kiyosaki's whole philosophy.
Exactly. And that leads us to his critique of traditional education.
He's pretty critical of the whole go to school, get a good job, work hard approach.
Yeah. He argues that most of us are just following our parents' financial programming, which often doesn't lead to real wealth.
Right. It's all about earning income, but not necessarily about what to do with that income once you have it.
It's like we're taught to climb the corporate ladder, but not what to do once we get to the top.
And that's where financial literacy comes in.
Kiyosaki even talks about working for his rich dad for practically nothing, like 10 cents an hour.
That's right. It was a deliberate lesson. It wasn't about exploitation.
So what was the point of that?
To make him experience the frustration of working for low wages. To spark that drive to find other ways to make money.
So it was about building a different mindset.
Exactly. He wanted to push Kiyosaki to think outside the traditional job model.
I see. And this brings us to one of his most famous concepts, assets versus liabilities.
Ah, yes. Those simple but powerful diagrams.
I remember those from the book, really breaking down what puts money in your pocket versus what takes it out.
It's such a fundamental principle, and it's surprising how many people get it wrong.
Like how?
Well, they might think their house or their car is their biggest asset. But if it's draining their income with a mortgage or car payments, it's actually a liability.
So even things we consider valuable possessions could be holding us back financially.
Right. And that's where the rat race comes into play.
That's another one of Kiyosaki's big ideas, right?
It is. It's
Yeah.
that cycle of working hard, earning more, but also spending more often on things that don't actually build wealth.
You're stuck on a treadmill, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Higher income just leads to higher taxes and lifestyle inflation. You never really get ahead.
I remember that vivid example from the book, the credit card that conveniently arrives in the mail just as a family gets a raise.
Perfect timing, but not in a good way.
Does that resonate with you at all? That pressure to keep up appearances, even when it might not be financially smart.
Oh, absolutely. I think most people have felt that at some point. And what's interesting is Kiyosaki says this rat race is driven by financial illiteracy.
Even among educated professionals.
Right. They might have fancy degrees, but lack the knowledge and skills to manage their money effectively.
It makes you wonder, what are the wealthy teaching their kids that we're missing out on?
That's the million-dollar question. And Kiyosaki offers some intriguing answers.
Like how the rich play by a different set of rules, especially when it comes to taxes and corporations.
He definitely has strong opinions about that. And some people might find them controversial.
He argues that the wealthy use corporations strategically to legally minimize their taxes.
He even uses the example of Robin Hood.
Wait, Robin Hood, the guy who steals from the rich and gives to the poor.
Right. But Kiyosaki's rich dad didn't see him as a hero. He saw him as someone who didn't understand how wealth is actually created and managed.
So Kiyosaki's saying the wealthy aren't just sitting around accepting higher taxes.
They're using the system to their advantage.
Yeah.
Legally, of course.
Okay, so it's not about tax evasion. It's about financial intelligence.
Exactly. It's about understanding the rules of the game and playing strategically.
It's like learning a new sport. If you don't know the rules, you're going to lose.
And Kiyosaki's saying the rich are playing a different game than everyone else, and financial literacy is your ticket to join in.
So it's more about being financially savvy than just working hard and earning a good income.
He breaks down financial intelligence into 4 key areas: accounting, investing, understanding markets, and the law.
It sounds like a lot to learn.
It is. But he emphasizes that these are skills anyone can develop just like any other.
He shares that great story about how he used his financial knowledge to spot a bargain property and flip it for a quick profit.
It wasn't luck. It was a direct result of his financial literacy and taking action.
So he's saying anyone can learn to spot those opportunities? But you need the knowledge first.
Right. It's about becoming financially fluent, so you can manage your money and make it work for you.
Okay, so we've covered how the wealthy teach their kids to think about money differently, to focus on assets over liabilities, and to develop this financial intelligence. But what about the mental barriers that hold many people back?
Ah, yes. Kiyosaki dives deep into that too. He identifies 5 major roadblocks:
Hmm.
fear, cynicism, laziness, arrogance, and bad habits.
He doesn't just list them. He really digs into how they play out in our lives.
And he uses such vivid examples from his own experience.
I remember the story, remember the Alamo, about how fear can paralyze us, but also how we can use it as fuel to overcome challenges.
And then there's the I don't want to fix toilet story about how cynicism can blind people to potential opportunities.
It's amazing how we can turn these everyday situations into powerful lessons about money.
He challenges us to look at our own lives and see if any of these mental barriers are holding us back.
It's about becoming aware of those patterns and actively working to change them.
It's like giving us a toolkit to break down those mental walls and build a more empowered mindset.
So we've got the mindset piece, but Kiyosaki also provides concrete steps to get started on the path to financial freedom.
Right. He does. He outlines 10 actions you can take to put his principles into practice.
Okay, I'm ready to hear them. What are some of the things he suggests?
Well, he really emphasizes that these steps aren't about some quick fix, you know? It's about changing your mindset and being consistent. Things like finding mentors, overcoming that fear of failure, seeking out opportunities, and even making offers. That might feel a bit bold at first, but he says even small steps can add up to big results over time.
So it's not about overnight success, it's about momentum.
Right, it's about consistently moving in the right direction.
And he shares that story about turning a small investment into a big asset, right? To show how taking action, even on a small scale, can pay off.
Yeah, he bought that mini storage unit for $12,000, held onto it, and eventually sold it for over $100,000.
Okay, that's a pretty convincing example. Patience is key.
Exactly, it's about playing the long game.
But I'm curious, does Kiyosaki have any advice for younger people? Those who are just starting out? Maybe they don't have much capital to invest yet.
He's a big believer in financial education starting early.
Makes sense, the earlier the better.
Right. He even has a version of his cash flow game specifically for kids.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a fun way to introduce financial concepts in a way that's engaging for them.
So it's like sneaking in a lesson about money while they think they're just playing a game.
Exactly. He says the earlier we start, the better our chances of developing those healthy habits.
And avoiding the pitfalls of financial illiteracy later on.
Right. He even suggests getting kids involved in age-appropriate businesses.
Oh, wow. So they can experience things like profit and loss firsthand.
It's about teaching them to be creators of wealth, not just consumers.
That's a powerful idea. I remember Kiyosaki has some pretty strong opinions about certain topics, though, like his views on taxes and corporations. Some people might find those a bit radical.
Yeah, he definitely pushes the boundaries. He talks about how corporations have been used throughout history to manage risk.
He goes all the way back to the days of sailing ships.
Exactly. Back then, wealthy individuals would invest in voyages through corporations. But if the ship sank, the corporation absorbed the risk.
So it was a way to protect their personal assets.
Right. It was a form of risk management. And Kiyosaki argues that principle still applies today.
So the wealthy are still using corporations to protect their assets and minimize their tax burden.
He even uses the story of Robin Hood to illustrate this point.
Again, I'm sensing a theme here.
Remember, Kiyosaki's rich dad saw Robin Hood not as a hero, but as a thief, redistributing wealth without understanding how it's actually created?
So Kiyosaki's point is that the wealthy aren't just passively accepting high taxes. They're actively working within the system.
Exactly. And corporations are one of the tools they use.
Okay, so it's not about greed. It's about financial intelligence.
Precisely. It's about understanding the rules and playing strategically.
He compares it to chess.
Right. You need to know the pieces, the moves, the strategies to win.
And in this game of money, financial literacy is your playbook.
Exactly. And that's where those 10 steps come in. They're about taking control, becoming financially literate, and building your own path to freedom.
Okay, so we've talked about financial education starting early, the historical context of corporations, and how the wealthy play by a different set of rules.
Yeah.
But let's get practical. What kind of investment advice does Kiyosaki actually offer?
Well, he encourages a real shift in mindset when it comes to investing.
In what way?
He thinks most people are too focused on playing it safe.
Which can limit their potential returns.
Right. He uses the analogy of a surfer waiting for the perfect wave.
Well, I like that.
Everyone else is on the beach,
Yeah.
but the skilled surfer is out there patiently observing.
Waiting for the right opportunity.
And when that wave comes, they're ready to ride it.
Yay.
Kiyosaki wants us to approach investing with that same mindset.
So he's saying the big wins, the opportunities that create serious wealth, often involve some level of risk.
Right. He says risk is often a matter of perception.
What feels risky to one person might feel manageable to someone with more knowledge and experience.
Exactly. It all comes back to knowledge is power. The more you understand about investing, the more confident you'll feel.
And the better you'll be able to manage that risk.
Yeah, precisely. And Kiyosaki gives a ton of practical tips for putting this knowledge into action.
Like what?
He talks about finding off-market deals that others might miss, like bargain properties in a down market.
I remember he found some amazing deals in a depressed real estate market.
Right. And he stresses the importance of raising capital, which can seem daunting at first.
He even bought an apartment building for $1.2 million without any money in the bank. How is that even possible?
Through negotiation skills, creative financing, and understanding how to structure deals.
So it's possible to make deals even if you don't have a lot of cash on hand.
Exactly. He emphasizes that these skills are learnable.
So don't let a lack of money be an excuse.
Right. He also talks about leverage, using other people's money to grow your own wealth.
That's a fundamental principle of real estate investing. Using a mortgage to buy a property you couldn't otherwise afford.
Exactly. And then using the rental income to pay down the mortgage.
So it's about using debt strategically, not letting it become a burden.
A really important distinction. And Kiyosaki also stresses the importance of building a team of advisors.
Experts who can guide you.
Right? He believes in paying professionals well because their expertise can ultimately make you more money.
He uses that funny analogy about how people are happy to tip a server 20%, even for bad service, but complain about paying a broker 3%.
It's true. We often reward people in the expense column more than those who help us build assets.
That's an interesting way to look at it. If you're serious about building wealth, investing in the right people can be one of the smartest moves you make.
Absolutely. And when it comes to investing, Kiyosaki always emphasizes having an upside.
Getting something for free, essentially.
He uses the example of Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's.
He wasn't passionate about burgers, was he?
Not really. He was passionate about the real estate that came with the franchises.
Wow, he saw the bigger picture. It wasn't just about selling burgers. It was about building a real estate empire.
Exactly. He saw the upside.
So Kiyosaki is saying, look beyond the obvious return on investment. What are the long-term assets you can acquire?
Think strategically. Play the long game.
This has been so insightful. We've talked about finding opportunities, using leverage, building a team, and looking for that upside. But there's one more piece of advice that I think is really important, and it's about giving back.
He has that great phrase, teach and you shall receive. He learned this from his rich dad,
Who was a strong believer in tithing.
even when money was tight.
So it's about generosity, even when it might seem counterintuitive.
Exactly. Kiyosaki argues that this generosity creates a flow of abundance.
When you give freely, you open yourself up to receiving.
And he's not just talking about material wealth. It could be opportunities, connections, even knowledge.
He shares that story about how he once needed information on a specific type of investment.
And he found an expert in that area and simply took her to lunch.
Simple but effective.
Right. She was happy to share her knowledge, and he found 2 great deals because of her help.
It's amazing how small acts of generosity can have such a big impact.
It's about creating those positive connections and being open to giving and receiving.
It goes back to that idea of seeking out mentors. There are people out there who are willing to help, if you're open to learning and willing to ask.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive, seeking out knowledge, building relationships, and being open to new possibilities.
So we've covered a lot here, from mindset shifts to specific investment strategies, but I think it's important to revisit that core concept, assets versus liabilities. It seems so basic, but it really is the foundation of his whole philosophy.
Absolutely. Most people are focused on acquiring things they think are assets, but are actually liabilities.
That bigger house, the fancy car, the latest gadgets,
And they end up deeper in debt.
stuck in that rat race,
Exactly. Working harder just to keep up with those expenses.
and never really getting ahead.
Right. Kiyosaki's solution is to shift your focus to acquiring assets.
Things that put money in your pocket instead of taking it out.
Exactly. Like rental properties, businesses, stocks and bonds,
And liabilities are things that drain your income.
mortgages, car loans, credit card debt.
So the goal is to build up your asset column until it generates enough passive income to cover your expenses.
At that point, you're financially free.
It's about building a system that works for you even while you sleep.
And it's a system that anyone can build.
Kiyosaki emphasizes that it's not about how much you make. It's about what you do with it.
He wants us to develop a mindset of abundance, to believe that financial freedom is achievable.
Even if it seems far off right now.
He provides a roadmap. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, but a long-term strategy.
For building wealth and achieving lasting security.
It's about taking control and creating the life you want.
And he gives so much advice on how to do it. From identifying assets to overcoming those mental barriers to mastering deal-making.
It's a lot to absorb.
His book is packed with insights.
But the main takeaway is this: financial literacy is essential for success.
The more you understand about money, the better equipped you'll be to make it work for you.
He's urging us to become students of money.
To learn the rules of the game and then play to win.
He's challenging us to think differently, to question conventional wisdom, and to create our own path.
It's a message that resonates with people from all walks of life.
Because we all want that financial security, to have choices, to live a life of abundance and purpose.
And he's showing us that it's possible.
If we're willing to put in the work and develop the right mindset.
So let's talk about his cash flow quadrant. He uses this model to explain the different ways people make money.
It's a great tool for understanding the path to financial freedom.
Okay, break it down for me.
Wow.
What are the 4 quadrants?
Well, we start with the E quadrant, which stands for employee.
Okay, so people who work for someone else.
Exactly. They trade their time and skills for a paycheck.
That's most people.
It's the most fulfill your path.
You go to school, get a job, work your way up.
But Kiyosaki says the E quadrant is limited when it comes to building wealth.
Because you're trading time for money. And there's only so much time you have.
Exactly. And your income is tapped by your employer.
He's not saying being an employee is bad. But it's not the most efficient way to achieve financial freedom.
Next to the E quadrant is the S quadrant, which stands for self-employed or small business owner.
So people who work for themselves.
Right. Doctors, lawyers, consultants, freelancers.
They're often highly skilled and passionate about their work.
But they're still limited by their own time and energy.
They might make more than an employee, but they're still trading hours for dollars.
Kiyosaki says the S quadrant can be a trap.
How so?
They end up working even harder than they did as employees, but they're still not building true wealth.
It's like they've created a job for themselves, but they haven't escaped the rat race.
Now, the B quadrant stands for business owner.
Okay, this is where things start to get interesting.
These are people who own systems that generate income, even without their direct involvement.
Like a franchise or a real estate portfolio.
Exactly. Their business works for them.
They're not working for their business.
Kiyosaki argues this is where true wealth is created.
Because your income isn't limited by your time.
Right. It's about those passive income streams.
The money that keeps flowing even while you sleep.
Exactly. And finally, we have the I quadrant, which stands for investor.
People who make money from their money.
Right. They invest in assets that generate returns.
Stocks, bonds, real estate businesses.
They understand how to leverage their capital to create more wealth.
Kiyosaki says this is the ultimate destination for those seeking financial freedom.
Because your income is independent of your time and effort.
Your money is working for you.
Exactly.
So the cash flow quadrant is a map for understanding different income streams.
And it helps you figure out your own goals. Which quadrant do you want to be in?
And what steps can you take to get there?
It's a powerful tool for self-reflection.
And for charting your course to financial freedom.
And Kiyosaki emphasizes that it's not about being in one quadrant or another, it's about understanding all of them.
So you can leverage them to your advantage.
Exactly. He encourages people to develop skills in all 4 quadrants.
To become well-rounded and financially savvy.
Because the more knowledge and experience you have, the more opportunities will open up to you.
And that's the key to success. Being open to learning, taking action, and creating your own path to abundance.
Absolutely.
Now, Kiyosaki also talks about those mental barriers we mentioned earlier, the ones that hold so many people back.
Yeah, those 5 roadblocks: fear, cynicism, laziness, arrogance, and bad habits. He really digs into how those play out in our lives.
He uses such vivid examples, too, like that story about fear. Remember the Alamo?
Right? He says fear can paralyze us, keep us from taking risks.
But we can also use it as fuel to overcome challenges.
It's about turning those setbacks into motivation.
And then there's that cynicism story about fixing toilets, how we can be blinded to opportunities.
He says cynicism is a form of mental laziness.
It's easy to criticize and dismiss new ideas.
But Kiyosaki challenges us to be open-minded
To ask questions instead of assuming.
and to look for the possibilities instead of just the downsides.
He also talks about laziness, the kind that keeps us stuck in our comfort zones.
Right. And he challenges us to be proactive,
To set clear goals and take action.
to break those goals down into manageable steps.
And to keep moving forward, even when it feels hard.
Exactly. He reminds us that consistency is key.
Small steps taken over time can lead to big results,
He also encourages us to develop good financial habits,
like paying yourself first.
tracking your expenses, avoiding impulsive spending.
Those habits, once they become ingrained, can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And then there's arrogance. Kiyosaki says it's often a mask for insecurity.
We might think we know it all, but that can prevent us from learning and growing,
So it's about being humble and open to feedback,
even when it's tough to hear.
because constructive criticism can help us improve.
Exactly.
And finally, those bad habits that can sabotage our best intentions.
Overspending, procrastinating, making impulsive decisions.
It's so easy to fall into those traps
He encourages us to really examine those habits.
and figure out which ones are holding us back.
Right. And then work to replace them with positive ones.
Like finding accountability partners, setting boundaries, rewarding ourselves for progress.
Creating a structure that supports our goals.
What I find so valuable about all this is that it goes beyond money,
It's about understanding ourselves.
our psychology and how it affects our financial
It's
decisions,
about self-awareness.
and taking ownership of our financial lives.
So we can make conscious choices that align with our goals.
Kiyosaki doesn't just tell us what to do. He helps us understand why we might be stuck.
And how to get unstuck.
He's all about empowerment, taking control.
Not just following rules blindly.
So we've covered a lot.
Mm.
But what really stands out for me is Kiyosaki's emphasis on action.
He's not about overthinking things.
He believes in learning by doing.
Taking those calculated risks, putting yourself out there,
He's so transparent about his own journey, too.
sharing his mistakes, his losses, the lessons he's learned.
He's not afraid to admit when he's messed up.
And that makes him so relatable.
It reminds us that setbacks are inevitable.
But it's how we respond that matters.
He says the most successful investors are often those who are willing to act, even when they're afraid.
It's about courage, stepping outside your comfort zone.
And he reminds us that the biggest risk is often playing it too safe.
If you're not willing to take those calculated risks, you limit your potential.
It's about finding that balance between caution and boldness.
Between planning and being decisive.
He also stresses the importance of finding your own investment style.
Something that aligns with your values, your risk tolerance, your goals.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
It's about understanding yourself as an investor.
And making choices that feel right for you.
Exactly. And of course, he's a big advocate for mentorship.
Finding those who have achieved what you want to achieve.
And learning from their experience.
He believes the right mentor can make a huge difference,
Offering guidance, support, accountability.
helping you stay focused and avoid those common pitfalls.
And he encourages us to seek out mentors in all areas of life.
Not just finance.
Sometimes that outside perspective can be so valuable.
Absolutely. And speaking of learning, Kiyosaki is also a huge proponent of developing that financial intelligence.
Those skills that go beyond traditional education.
He breaks it down into those 4 areas: accounting, investing, understanding markets, and the law.
Right.
He encourages us to be proactive about it.
Read books, take courses, attend seminars.
Find mentors who can guide you.
And he emphasizes that it's a lifelong process.
The financial world is always changing,
So we need to stay curious and adaptable.
always learning, always growing.
And it's not just about making money.
It's about managing risk, protecting your assets, creating a secure future.
Being responsible and building a sustainable foundation.
Kiyosaki does a great job of making finance accessible.
Giving people the tools to make informed decisions.
He's a true advocate for empowerment.
Helping people take control of their financial destinies.
Now, Kiyosaki also talks about building a strong financial foundation, something a lot of people struggle with.
He says it's crucial for long-term success.
And he encourages us to develop those good habits early on.
Tracking expenses, saving regularly, having a clear budget.
Not to restrict ourselves, but to understand where our money's going.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices.
He also says to live below our means.
Not because we have to, but because it frees up resources for investing.
It's about shifting from consumer to investor
Right. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep.
and what you do with it.
Exactly.
Kiyosaki emphasizes long-term thinking.
Building assets that generate income for years to come.
He gives us a roadmap for stability and abundance.
And it's accessible to everyone.
It's about taking those small, consistent steps.
That lead to big results over time.
His insights into building a strong foundation really make personal finance less intimidating.
They give people a practical framework.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Assets versus liabilities, the cash flow quadrant, overcoming those mental barriers, mentorship, building a strong foundation. But let's go back to his core message. Financial education is everything.
That's the heart of his philosophy.
He says traditional education doesn't prepare us for the real world of money.
We're taught to be good employees, not good investors or entrepreneurs.
And he believes this lack of financial literacy is a big part of the wealth gap.
He advocates for a complete overhaul of education.
More emphasis on financial skills, empowering people to take control.
Giving everyone the tools and knowledge they need to succeed.
It's an inspiring message. Everyone has the potential to succeed if they're given the right tools and knowledge.
He's challenging the status quo.
Pushing for a more equitable financial landscape.
He's a true disruptor.
Now, beyond money management, Kiyosaki also talks about finding your passion.
He believes true wealth is more than just money.
It's about aligning your work with your purpose.
Creating a life that feels fulfilling and meaningful.
He encourages us to explore our interests.
To find what truly lights us up.
And to find a career path that we're passionate about.
Because when you love what you do, you're more likely to be successful.
He reminds us that it's never too late to pursue our passions.
He didn't become an entrepreneur until his 40s.
That's a great point. It's never too late.
It's a message of hope and possibility.
To create a life we love. One that's both financially rewarding and personally fulfilling.
No matter where we are in our journey.
And Kiyosaki gives practical advice for making this happen.
Identifying those passions, taking actions, surrounding yourself with supportive people.
It's about taking ownership and creating a future that aligns with your values.
Absolutely.
Now, Kiyosaki also emphasizes building a strong team.
We can achieve so much more when we collaborate.
Two heads are better than one.
He encourages us to surround ourselves with talented people.
People who share our vision.
People who can help us bring our ideas to life.
We all have different strengths and weaknesses.
It's about finding people who complement our skills.
And who can help us fill in those gaps.
He reminds us that asking for help is not a weakness.
It's often a sign of strength.
It's about creating that synergy where the team achieves more than any individual could.
It's about that collective power.
And of course, finding those mentors.
And those experienced guides.
Who can offer insights and support.
It's so valuable to have someone who's been there before.
Absolutely.
And on that note of continuous learning, Kiyosaki also talks about understanding the different types of income.
Earned income. Passive income, portfolio income.
It's not just how much you make, it's how you make it.
Exactly.
Earned income is the most common.
It's the money from your job.
Trading time for money.
But it can be vulnerable.
If you lose your job, you lose your income.
That's why it's important to diversify.
To create multiple income streams.
And focus on building those passive income streams.
Making money without actively working for it.
Rental properties, dividends, royalties, business income.
Making money while you sleep.
That's the key to financial freedom.
And there's portfolio income.
Income from investments.
Like capital gains from selling stocks or real estate.
It can be more volatile.
But it also has the potential for higher returns.
Kiyosaki encourages us to learn about different investment strategies.
To understand risk management.
And to find the right mix for your goals.
So understanding these different types of income is key.
It's about having a holistic view.
Creating a system that supports your long-term goals.
Kiyosaki wants us to think outside the box.
To explore all the possibilities.
To be proactive and take control.
One final point that I think is really important is Kiyosaki's emphasis on having a clear financial vision.
He says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
It's like setting out on a journey without a destination.
You might end up somewhere, but it might not be where you wanted to go.
Exactly.
He encourages us to set specific goals, write them down, make a plan, and take action.
Don't just dream about it. Make it happen.
We have the power to create the future we want.
It's about shifting to a mindset of abundance.
Believing that financial freedom is possible.
And then taking those aligned actions.
It's been so interesting exploring Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Kiyosaki offers so many valuable insights.
Practical strategies for anyone looking to improve their finances.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
I think his core message is about empowerment.
We have choices. We're not trapped. we can create the life we want,
He's challenging us to think differently about money.
to develop that financial intelligence.
He's also a big advocate for learning, finding mentors, building a support system.
We don't have to do this alone.
If you're feeling inspired to take action, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great place to start.
It can really shift your perspective.
And we always encourage you to keep learning.
Read books, listen to podcasts, attend seminars.
Connect with people who are knowledgeable about money.
The more you learn, the more empowered you become.
Remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time.
It really is. It's about understanding that calculated risks can lead to big rewards.
And along with taking risks, Kiyosaki really emphasizes collaboration, building a strong team.
Yeah, he says we can accomplish so much more together.
It's more than just two heads are better than one.
It's about applying that to your finances, to building wealth and achieving those big goals.
Exactly. Surround yourself with talented people.
People who share your vision. People who can help bring those ideas to life.
Right. We all have different strengths and weaknesses.
So it's about finding those people who complement your skills.
Who can fill in the gaps?
He says it's not weak to ask for help.
It's actually a sign of strong leadership.
To delegate. To leverage the expertise of others.
It's about creating that team synergy.
Where everyone's contributing their unique talents.
And the team achieves more than any individual could.
Exactly. And of course, he talks about mentors too.
Those experienced guides who can offer so much insight.
And help you navigate the tough stuff.
Right. Having a mentor can make a huge difference.
And not just in finance. In all areas of life.
Sometimes you need that outside perspective.
To see things more clearly.
Exactly. And speaking of continuous growth, Kiyosaki also talks about understanding different types of income.
Earned passive portfolio.
It's not just about how much you make, but where it's coming from.
Right? And that can have a big impact on your overall financial well-being.
So earned income, that's the most common.
Your job. Trading time for money.
It's how most people start out.
But it can be risky.
If you lose your job, you lose that income.
So he encourages diversifying your income streams.
Creating multiple sources of revenue.
And focusing on those passive income streams.
You're making money without actively working for it.
Yes. The dream.
Rental properties, dividends, royalties, business income.
Money working for you, even while you sleep.
Exactly. That's the key to financial freedom.
And then there's portfolio income.
Income from investments.
Like capital gains from selling stocks or real estate.
It can be more volatile.
But with potential for higher returns.
Kiyosaki encourages learning about different investment strategies.
Understanding risk management.
Finding the right mix for you.
So understanding these different types of income is crucial.
It's about having a holistic view of your finances.
Creating a system that supports your goals.
Kiyosaki's all about thinking outside the box.
Exploring the possibilities.
Being proactive. Taking control.
He wants us to create our own financial destinies.
Absolutely. And one final point that I think is so important is having that clear financial vision.
He says if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Love that quote. It's so true.
It's about having a destination in mind.
So you don't just end up somewhere randomly.
Exactly. He encourages setting specific goals.
Writing them down. Creating a plan.
And then taking action.
Don't just dream about it. Make it happen.
We have the power to create our future.
It's about shifting to that abundance mindset.
Believing that financial freedom is possible.
And then taking those steps to make it a reality.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Kiyosaki offers so many valuable insights.
Practical strategies for anyone looking to improve their financial situation.
As we wrap up, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
Kiyosaki's all about empowerment, taking control of your finances. It's not about accepting the status quo.
He challenges us to think differently, to question conventional wisdom, to build that financial intelligence.
And he stresses continuous learning, finding mentors, building that support system.
You don't have to do it alone.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great place to start if you're ready to take action.
It can really open your eyes to new possibilities.
And we encourage you to keep learning, keep growing.
Read those books, listen to podcasts, attend seminars, talk to experts.
The more you learn, the more empowered you become.
Remember, even small changes can make a big difference.
It's about taking those steps towards the financial future you want.
You've got this.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We'll see you next time.
We truly appreciate you tuning in to this podcast. Your time and support mean the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on future content. And if you found value in what we shared, we'd love for you to leave a review or share it with a friend. It helps us grow and keep bringing you amazing episodes. Stay connected, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next one. Until then, keep listening and keep exploring. Jardim, thank you.